So the title of my presentation is Politics, How to Get Involved, and I will be going over my experiences with campaigns, nonprofit organizations, and the Nevada Democratic Party. The Political Science Club is nonpartisan, but my presentation in specific will be regarding to democratic politics in the state. And then, okay, so some background about me. Also, sorry to interrupt. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I can't see the chat right now how I'm presenting, so like interrupt me if you need to, but I'll continue. Background about me. My name is Areli. I'm a senior in political science at UNLV. This is my second year at UNLV. I did CS in high school, so I'm a little advanced in my degree, and I have been involved in Nevada politics for over 5 years. I started in 2015, so it's been quite a while. I got involved because of the 2016 election. So when I was 15, I was a freshman in high school, and I just really, personally, I really recognized the immediate threat to democracy in general, and especially communities of color. In my high school in particular, there was a lot of like hate crimes, and people did like swastikas in the male bathrooms, and it was just getting really intense. So I felt that threat. I live in Centennial Hills, so I went to Northwest, which is a predominantly white high school as well. And I just didn't really feel safe there, which was also part of the reason why I went to CSN high school. And what it really boiled down to is that when I would basically express my concerns to the high school administration and be like, as a person of color, as a Latina, I don't feel safe here. All of these like hate crimes, people are like fighting in the parking lot, nobody's doing anything about it. And the administration kind of took a if I ignore it, it's not happening approach. So I really realized that nobody was representing what I wanted, and nobody was really listening to me either, because I was either the only one or there weren't enough people speaking out like I was. So I figured that if I wanted to do things a certain way, I would have to do it myself. And through this, I found a passion for public service and community engagement. Really empowered me to, I guess, believe in my own capabilities as a person and to really own my own voice. I was really, really shy, super shy, like so bad to the point that I couldn't even like order food at a drive-through and stuff like that, like extremely shy. And it really gave me the chance to own my voice and kind of grow into it as well and find my skill set. So I really appreciate my background in this and how much work I've done. And it all really does come down to the point that one person can make a difference. One person might not be able to change the world or fix, super complex issues, but you do make a difference. Like speaking out in a moment that you feel uncomfortable or you see some injustice happening, it can turn the situation around and you can really help people that might not be as confident or might just not want to engage with other people. And I guess the main point of this is that all of our voices matter and are extremely needed. That's something that I wish people would have told me earlier. I did start fairly young, but it was a couple of years of just kind of letting things slide, letting like microaggressions slide, even some racist encounters. So it's just really important for all of us to own our voice and recognize that we matter. So how I officially got involved, as I mentioned, I've been involved for 5 years. I started volunteering for the Hillary for America presidential campaign in 2015. So I was one of the early fellows in the state of Nevada. And this included like fellow duties, included getting people registered to vote, I think I got trained by like the county registrar to really get people registered to vote since I was so young, and how to talk to voters. It's a really important skill that I didn't know prior to this, and it's something that really has helped me in my personal speech development and like public speaking skills. The campaign staff was incredibly helpful in giving me general information about how campaigns work. So I watch a lot of political TV shows like West Wing, Parks and Rec, and stuff like that. And it's pretty, I mean, actually now in this election, it's pretty similar, but before it was different to where there's a certain way to approach people and a certain way to get your ideas across. And the campaign staff was obviously massive because it's a presidential, but they were really helpful in just giving me general information about how campaigns are even structured, like how the chain of command works, how how you approach people, and also how you stand up for yourself. My fellow duties included me doing about 10 to 15 hours a week for the campaign, go to the main campaign office that was in North Las Vegas, and be there for basically the entire afternoon, a couple of days a week. And it was really helpful for me. So, especially since this was such a big campaign for me to start off on, and it was such a high stakes campaign, there were a lot of logistical things that we had to learn and that we had to be prepared for. So this really helped me, like, also just learn how to do politics in Nevada. Politics is different in every state. So for Nevada, the community is particularly small. So once you're in it for a while, you basically get to meet almost everybody. And I think that if it wasn't for the Hillary for America campaign, I wouldn't have had those skills already when the campaign ended, to really keep being involved in politics. So it really helped me become a good staffer and just political leader. Okay, so for political campaigns, after I was a volunteer for the Hillary for America campaign, I did it for about a year. I got involved as staff for other campaigns, and for me, it was really important, and I'm really glad that I started off at the local level. So the biggest campaign after Hillary for America, we won in Nevada, but unfortunately lost nationwide. But at least in Nevada, it was a victory. I did a city council campaign for my own ward and slowly got involved in tiers. So I did the Kelly Ross for city council for Ward 6 in 2017 for a couple of months. I was a field organizer for a campaign, and that's where I made my first connections in politics. A lot of national staff. So, for example, big presidential campaigns like Hillary for America, or even right now, Joe Biden, or even the Trump campaign, most of the staff is not from the state. It's a lot of people that kind of travel around and set grounds for a couple months, work, and then move somewhere else after the campaign is over. So a lot of the connections I had made in the Hillary for America campaign were no longer there for me because they moved to a different state. They jumped on another campaign that was either a state or nationwide again. So the local campaign that I did for city council is where I actually made my first solid Nevada political connections. And then once again, it helped me get over being shy, and I gained confidence through speaking with voters. I mean, I was knocking doors every day after high school, and you encounter so many different types of people when you're canvassing that at some point, all of the shyness you have just evaporates because it's not an option for you anymore. So that's what helped me get over my shyness, and I was like really shy. So it was a major difference for me. And I just really gained confidence because at the end of the day, all people can tell you is no. And once you accept that and really process that, it doesn't really matter how nervous you are or what you exactly say to them. It's never going to go as badly as you think it is. So after I did the city council campaign and started off at the local level, I moved up to the state level, and this included talking to more state legislators in the state legislature. And I started to learn more about state policy. So I started to learn about specific bills on education, the actual process in which bills get created in Nevada, and even got some mentors that were state officials. So it was really a different experience for me once I moved up to the state level because things were, I guess, high stakes in some way, that the legislation was getting passed, I mean, by the end of the session, which is about 6 months. So everything happens very quickly once you kind of move up to state campaigns. Um, and then I also started lobbying my local elected officials when I did this, and got to know my personal elected officials and how they work, and then understand in a way how to maneuver my way around them. Both of my elected officials are Republicans, so it was an interesting experience going from pure Democratic candidates that I worked for to trying to lobby one moderate Republican and then one pretty staunch Republican. So it was an interesting experience for me as well, and really gave me a different perspective of Nevada politics in that way. After state level, I did federal again, and then this also includes judicial campaigns. So I did federal judicial and just federal political campaigns in general. Once you have a few years working in Nevada politics and you slowly move up, you have, I guess, your voice weighs a lot more. So since I was official staff on these campaigns and was in a paid position, I had a lot more influence over the structure of the campaign, since I was contributing, information or feedback to state directors and higher ups. So my ideas were actually taken into account more once you start off with as a volunteer, it's a lot harder to really, I guess, make a difference in the structure of a campaign because they give you a lot of busy work and just beginning introduction stuff. But once you move up the structure of actual campaigns, your voice gets taken into account a lot more. So this is only a partial list of the political campaigns I have worked on. I'm not going to go super into detail on all of them because there's obviously a lot, but this is in order. So I did Hillary for America, and then, as I mentioned before, Kelly Ross for City Council 6, and then I did Catherine Cortez Masto for U.S. Senate, and I'm really proud to have helped elect the first Latina U.S. Senator. So that is a really big campaign for me, probably one of the ones I'm proudest of. And number 4, I did Ruben Kihuen for Congress, District 4. This was before he was problematic and things came out about him. So sadly, I do not longer support him, but I still did his campaign, so I put it on here. Next, that was all 2016. For 2018, I did the midterm, so I did Jackie Rosen for Nevada U.S. Senate, Stephen Horsford for Congress, and Steve Sisolak for Nevada Governor. These are all, as you could see, more state and federal campaigns. And then after that, I did Olivia Diaz for City Council Ward 3. This is a local campaign, and she's also the first Latina to be a Las Vegas City Councilwoman. So I'm super, super proud of that. I was there from the very beginning of her campaign to the end, and she's actually a pretty close friend of mine. As for the 2020 primaries, I was actually the first staff hired for the Julian for the future presidential campaign. I worked for Julian Castro, who was the former Secretary of HUD and Mayor of San Antonio. And then after he dropped out, I did Warren for president. And then after she dropped out, I did Bernie. And now I'm doing Biden. So I kind of did all 4 of the ones that are listed on here. As for state campaigns, I'm still fairly involved in the Nicole Canizaro for Nevada State Senate District 6. She is the current majority leader of the Nevada legislature, and I think she does an awesome job. So I am still helping reelect her. And this is a list of judicial campaigns I have worked on. So these are all from this term. I kind of got a little over, not necessarily over, but I wanted to learn something new. I'm a little done with political campaigns for the most part. And since I want to go to law school and I'm pre-law, I decided to shift my focus to judicial campaigns. So I'm still helping on these, a few of these. So Nadia Kral for District Court Judge, she's Department 4, she's running for that, and she won her primary, so she's still on the ballot for this November, as well as Ozzy Fumo for Nevada Supreme Court Seat D, Romeo Perez for Family Court Judge, Department Z, and unfortunately Rika, she lost her primary, so she's not going to be on the ballot, but the other 3 still are. And then these are also different levels. So Nevada Supreme Court is a state judicial race, and then Department 4 is more state and slightly federal, and then Romero Perez, he is like local judge. So those are also different tiers of that. That's kind of it for my political campaign work. I've also done a very, very, very dedicated, I guess, career in nonprofit organizations. So in between campaign cycles, I got involved with nonprofits. As you can see from my list, it's usually every 2 years, and maybe if I do a local election in between, but I have a lot of time off from campaigns, and then I do nonprofit. So kind of going off what, there's actually a few Next Gen fellows in the club right now. So that's really exciting. I actually got my start there in 2017. I worked there for about a year, and I did 2 fellowships with them. So they're about like 4 months each. And I was an operations fellow and also a field fellow. And this is also, I guess, prior to the midterms and then during the midterms. And what I really learned from Next Gen America, they're actually a really great organization. I recommend it to anybody who's interested in, I guess, getting an introduction to Nevada politics. They're technically nonpartisan, but tend to lean towards college-based issues, which tend to be progressive. But I really liked my experience there. I learned the structure of nonprofit campaigns, and like I just gained a lot of experience and learned so many logistics that I didn't know prior to like all my campaign work. They are completely different things. So political campaigns are like black, nonprofit campaigns are white. It's completely different. You learn a lot of different things. At NextGen, I learned how to do budgets. I learned VAN, which is a voter mobilization network. So it's a database with voter outreach. And I learned how to plan like massive events that I had no prior experience with, and just a lot of other logistical stuff that kind of falls through the cracks when you're doing political campaigns, because there's always a position for that. So you don't learn it. But when you're in a nonprofit, you get a lot of more things assigned to you as well. That's the first one. And these are the 3 paid nonprofits that I worked for. I was paid for all these positions. And after that, most recently, I did Nevada Student Power, which is a branch from Student Power. And I was an organizing fellow in 2019, and I organized, and I'm really proud of this. I led an immigration workshop with the Boyd School of Law Immigration Clinic on the topic of DACA that was available free to the public. So we organized lawyers and just had a really nice workshop that was informational. This was around the time that immigration was going to be a case that was heard at the Supreme Court. So it was a really important clinic that we held, and I'm really proud of it. This is also where I made connections for law school and with community leaders, since it was such a robust event that we had to really like diligently plan out. I met a lot of really nice lawyers that work in immigration and just do like public interest. And I met a lot of really awesome immigration leaders in the state. Lastly, this is the last nonprofit that I officially worked for. I was a field organizer for Mi Familia Vota in 2017. So these are kind of from when I first got my start. And I organized community colleges and students. So it was a lot of youth outreach that I did for them. And then this is a list of of nonprofits that I volunteered with and that I lobbied with. So to first start this off is the League of Conservation Voters, which is also called the Nevada Conservation League in Nevada. I lobbied the state legislature with them, and I really pushed for question 6 on the ballot in Nevada to get clean energy in the state. And this was really cool because I actually got published in the local newspaper. So like I said, with nonprofits, there's a lot of different opportunities that you get that are just not there with political campaigns. The chances that I would have gotten kind of published in a newspaper when I was on a campaign are very dismal. But once you do nonprofits, you get a lot more opportunities that are also local that you can also use to build up your resume. And at the Nevada Conservation League, I made a lot of connections with environmentalists and just really awesome people who are doing great work. I also met a lot of people that write public policy when I was volunteering for them. I volunteered for them for about a year, so a little over a year actually. So it was really great. It was really a great experience for me. Next is the Nevada Immigration Coalition. They're called the NIC for short, and it's basically a broad coalition of pro-immigration groups in Nevada. But it's basically a lot of massive and small little nonprofits together for one purpose, which is pro-immigration legislation. So I lobbied for them in Carson City on immigrant rights, and we actually passed most of the bills that we lobbied for, and there was a proclamation that was given by the state legislature. So it was really awesome, and I gained a lot of firsthand experience lobbying on this trip. I met so many different people and heard so many perspectives that it was really, in a way, a life-changing experience for me. I didn't know a lot of these stories, and hearing them just really motivated me to lobby a little harder and put more, passion into this. I was a little nervous, so hearing those really touching stories kind of helped me get over that and really focus on the goal. So that was the NIC. I did that in April of 2019. This is the last lobbying thing I did. I lobbied for Planned Parenthood, and Carson City. This was in February of 2019, and it was for women's rights. We lobbied for a bill to get rid of an abortion bill that we had in the state that was basically punishing women for abortion. So we were successful in getting that bill kind of written out of the Nevada Constitution and replaced with something better. And through all of these lobbying experiences, I just met a lot of really passionate people, which at times you don't meet in political campaigns. So since political campaigns are centered around a person, the excitement is not always there. But since nonprofits are centered around an issue or an idea, a lot of people that actually show up to these things are really committed to them and feel really strongly. So it just allowed for me to also grow more as an advocate, because some people were just also as equally as passionate as I was. So that was something nice that really like helped me thrive as well. And lastly, with the American Civil Liberties Union, which is also the ACLU, this was the most recent one. I was a volunteer for the Rights for All campaign, which is an initiative they launched for the 2020 primaries, and basically asked candidates like what their stances were on critical issues that the ACLU focuses on, and then got them to either commit to answers or commit to plans. So we're kind of going over time, so I'm gonna try to speed this up a little. But as I mentioned before, the critical skills I've gained were like throughout this entire process, throughout these whole 5 years, have really been strong communication skills. I've learned how to give public speeches that are actually like well crafted and helpful for the candidates in a way. And as I mentioned before as well, it got me over my public speaking related anxiety in a way. And it really helped me professionally address problems or handle confrontations on the spot. So once you do all of these things for about 5 years, you will always encounter people that are going to be more aggressive in their communication or are going to be pushy or just rude in general. So when you do it for this long or you do political campaigns, they also teach you. There's like trainings for this. So they teach you how to avoid nasty confrontations and how to make your point in a respectful and civil way, which I think is so important and drastically needed now. The second skill is time management. Since I did all of this while I was a full-time student in high school and college, it definitely taught me how to balance my schedule in a way and get things done quickly. Since I always had goals that needed to be completed or stuff like that, it increased my productivity. I was always doing something, so it never really allowed me to just kind of sit there and sulk. I always had something to do, and I always had a supervisor that was telling me that I had stuff due. So that definitely pushed me to kind of get more in control of my stuff. And lastly, I don't think this is really talked about enough, but political campaigns and nonprofits help you learn how to kind of self-market yourself in a way, which sounds a little weird, but I'm going to explain it a little bit more. Campaigns are very temporary. They're usually only for a couple of months, so you're always on the lookout for the next opportunity, the next campaign, the next anything. So you have to learn how to make yourself stand out, and you have to really like own yourself and have confidence in order to get these offers. Because if you're really shy and timid, people are going to be less likely to offer you new positions. So you kind of learn how to recognize your own skill set and then use that to your advantage. Okay, I guess this is some advice. So what I think of starting off by joining campaigns, it's honestly a solid start, and I've like heard a few people are getting their start in nonprofits, so that's really exciting, and I think that's a great start. Organizers will tend to be very flexible, especially if you're a student, with your schedule, and this just gives you an introduction into this, I guess, the politics in the state and how to maneuver your way through that. Of course, you can make connections with people, and if you're a student and you want to get things out of it, you could get letters of recommendation and other assortments like that. And it's not as much responsibility, so it's not so overwhelming if you start off as a volunteer or as a fellow. You don't really get offered positions as organizers unless you've been in it for a couple years. So regardless, you will start off as an intern, volunteer, or a fellow. Some advice that I wish I had gotten when I first started off, because I've obviously learned a lot from this, and that leads in my advice is to be clear of what you're comfortable with. If you do decide to join Nevada politics by getting involved in campaigns, please be clear of what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and set these boundaries with your supervisors or the organizers that are assigned to you, and really remain committed to what you believe in and what you want to gain from the experience. Like I've said, you get a lot of things assigned to you. So if you don't want to do certain things, or want to focus on a certain area, or like if you want to focus on budgets and stuff like that specific, make that clear to your supervisors, and they will most likely take that the correct way and just really help you learn. The biggest thing I would say is to not overwork yourself. I did that a lot, and it was not really great for my mental health. I'm sure people have heard me complain of politics and how stressed I am when I do them, but that was because I would always put too much onto myself. So, like I said, be clear of what you're comfortable with, and just make sure that you're never doing too much, because in the wise words of Ron Swanson, do not half-ass one thing, whole-ass one thing. So put your efforts in one certain thing and do not take too much because then you're not going to do well in any of it. And this includes like taking breaks when necessary, like I mentioned, and to not be hard on yourself. When it comes to campaigns, a lot of things are number based and you might not hit them. And you just really need to understand that the work is really hard. Getting people to register to vote is very difficult. People are incredibly rude and dismissive. So don't be too hard on yourself if you miss some quotas or you miss some numbers. The work is hard and you are literally doing your best. So do not put any pressure on yourself. This also goes to self-care. If you need to do yoga, I don't know, that's something that I picked up, or anything else just to relieve some stress, please do that. Do not kind of hold everything in and then just blow up. It is not good for anybody. It is not good for like your goal. It is not good for your own mental health or the organization you belong to. So if you don't take care of yourself, you're just, I guess, doing harm to all of those things that you're trying to work on. Lastly, would be to be committed to a goal and an issue, not a candidate. A lot of people get so disappointed by their candidates and they're like, I hate that I'm doing this campaign. It is ridiculous. I'm so disappointed. But that kind of stems from the problem that you focus on a candidate and not an issue. So that kind of goes into my next slide, which is how to find out where you should get involved. So two main questions you want to ask yourself are, what are your interests? So do you want to be involved in partisan politics like I was? Do you want to do nonprofits? What do you really care about? Anything in particular that really stands out for you? So if it's in the environment, climate change, immigration, wealth inequality, and other really important topics like that right now. And do you want to convince people to vote for a candidate or an issue? And that is a huge line. When you do campaigns, you have to convince people to vote for a candidate. So the issues are kind of a plus, but you're always still pushing your candidate. While at a nonprofit, you're pushing an issue, you're pushing petitions, you're pushing more issue-based goals. And that leads into the environment you want to be in, which is the second biggest question. And political campaigns are incredibly fast-paced, and you have higher number goals. As I mentioned, there's quotas. You have to hit certain numbers for your deadlines. And that gets very intense, especially as the election day gets closer. So when I started off, the quotas were a lot less. And then once things picked up and it was about like a month out from election day, your quotas almost triple or double in the numbers. So it's a huge increase and obviously a lot more stress. So nonprofits are a lot less intense than political campaigns. As I mentioned, also, political campaigns have a really big staff. So you spend a lot of time with them, but a lot of them leave after. So there's not really a huge sense of community. While at nonprofits, everybody is closer because they're usually local people in those positions and you interact with them a lot. And then I guess for specifics, campaigns include commit to vote cards, volunteer recruitment. You need to build like massive volunteer teams and do a lot. Want that to register very clearly. A lot of voter registration. That is like your number one thing, and your numbers get so high towards the end. I started off with like 10 or 20 forms, and by the end, they were asking for about 100 in a week, which if you do VR, you understand how incredibly difficult that is. It was doable, but it caused me a few mental breakdowns along the way. So that was wonderful. As for nonprofits, it's more petitions, volunteer recruitment, community engagement. So you do a lot more events. You talk to a lot more state, local officials and just urge people to sign petitions about an issue. A lot of them are also related to ballot initiatives and push that. So that is kind of my presentation on this. Thank you for hopefully paying attention and being engaged. Once again, sorry I cut off, but anybody have any questions or comments?